Why did you pick J.D. Vance?
We've always had a good chemistry, and originally JD was probably not for me, but he didn't know me. And then when we got to know each other, he liked me maybe more than anybody liked me, and he would stick up for me, and he'd fight for the worker.
Wrong. Up until the end, and then wrong again at the very end. What do you mean he probably wasn't for you? He said you could be Hitler. And more importantly than that, because he didn't know me. No, he said those things because he knew you. He could read you and the cult of personality that you were building as accurately as the vast majority of people that have witnessed this moment. He knew what you were, he knew what you were doing, he knew why it was succeeding, and he opposed it. He then decided that he'd like to have a really big house and a vote in the Senate, and so he just fired all of his principles. And yes, he does defend you, but not because he's a defender of the worker. Yeah, he wrote Hillbilly Elegy, which I think people have really rewritten what stance that actually has on regular workers. Again, it produced a guy that went into venture capital and is now supporting someone who's utterly grifting off the workers. So clearly it wasn't the Nostradamus take that was needed to improve the condition of regular working Americans, particularly conservatives. But anyway, he's trying to reassure people that he made the right choice. And I said in response to the announcement that was made when we were live at the RNC, it's a bad choice. And some people said, well, he's just doubling down on populism. Yeah, but the thing about doubling down is that it's not something new. And Donald Trump has already maxed out fake right-wing populism, just taking racism and Islamophobia and homophobia and substituting that for an economic plan. He already has as much of that as you can possibly have. You don't need to double down when you have infinite. And he's rapidly learning that it might not have been a great choice, in no small part because of the baggage that JD Vance brings with him.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
You might have seen recently that JD Vance apparently wrote a fawning foreword for a new book by the self-proclaimed head of Project 2025, Kevin Roberts. That's Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington to Save America. That's a title for you. And here's what JD Vance wrote in that, again, by the guy who created Project 2025. Never before has a figure with Roberts's depth and stature within the American right tried to articulate a genuinely new future for conservatism. Well, we know all about that new future for conservatism, don't we? We are all now realizing that it's time to circle the wagons and load the muskets. That's the sort of language they pretended inspired violence when the left was using it when Donald Trump was almost killed. That's what JD Vance was writing in book reviews, by the way. In the fights that lay ahead, these ideas are an essential weapon. Well, the ideas that he's talking about there, the 900 pages of ideas that make up Project 2025, I agree, are an essential weapon for the left and for the Democrats against the right, because it was a really stupid thing to take all of your most radical ideas, slap a single label on it that can now be referred to and people can Google. And they are rapidly discovering that. We're gonna get to the polls on Project 2025. But Donald Trump is still going around, literally to this morning, saying that he has nothing to do with Project 2025 when he chose a running mate who's writing fawning odes to the people who created it. Yes, what do you make of this? What do you think of the choice of him as a running mate?
It was funny to me when they announced him as the running mate. As we know at the RNC, I guess you were there when they announced it. Allegedly, from what I heard, there wasn't very enthusiastic response to his announcement, and that was telling. We've seen him give speeches, and it was really awkward when he was talking about his diet Mountain Dew, and people were just like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is really embarrassing for the Republicans, for the Trump team, for everyone involved in making this decision. With the Democrats, you can say, how did we end up with Joe Biden as our presumptive nominee for 2024? It was because he was already the incumbent. That decision was made years ago, and the future consequences of those decisions from 2020 were perhaps unclear until now. So you can blame it on whoever was in charge 4 years ago. But with Trump naming JD Vance as his running mate, how many months did they take to come to this decision? How many months did they deliberate over this? How many experts and consultants on his staff who probably earned six-figure salaries were involved in making this decision? And why did it take so long for them to make this decision, only for it to be so obviously wrong and proven to them immediately after they made the announcement, and now they're filled with all of this regret, and now they have to go back on this decision. It's really embarrassing.
Yeah, look, they spent months on the overall question of who it should be. How much time did they seriously put into whether it should be him or not? I don't know. Donald Trump seems like the sort of person that maybe he woke up that morning and decided. And it clearly was I don't need a VP to help me win. I'm gonna whoop Joe. It's gonna be super easy. So I can just have a guy that will be a rubber stamp for a coup if necessary. And that's what he chose. And later on in the show, when Trump tries to claim that, I always knew that Biden was gonna step down, it was gonna be Harris. Yeah, well, your choice of VP sure doesn't imply that that's the case. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?